Good day. Welcome to historic Cold Spring Village and baking rye, corn, and wheat bread at the Beehive Oven. Today's recipe is a very old recipe. In colonial America, the three main ingredients that were in many breads was cornmeal, also known as Indian meal, wheat flour, and rye. Rye is a flour that was introduced into Europe as of the 1200s. Rye bread is used because it has a longer shelf life, and it would last almost 2 weeks longer than a wheat flour and not get moldy. When you add corn to it, such as in this loaf, you start to have local crops that can be raised on the farm and not something that you would have to process or purchase from your country store. To start our bread, you're going to have first taken 1.5 cups of cornmeal, add boiling water, and create what looks like mashed potatoes. Allow it to cool, and then we're going to add our other wet ingredients. Today, as part of my leavening, I'm going to use a combination of rye starter and wheat starter. I really like my wheat starter. It has a sour, tangy taste, and I enjoy that in bread. You can see how light the wheat starter is and how thick and dense the rye starter is. I'll talk about the starters later on. I've just added the starter. What I'm also going to add is 2 cups or 1.5 cups of water. And I'm going to add our rye flour. Today I am using pumpernickel meal. It's a coarse flour. It has more bran and chaff in it, much like a dark rye will. A light rye has less of the bran and the seeds and the germ of the rye. We're going to mix these three together and wait for about 20 minutes to allow the starter to start to bloom, and then we will add our wheat. So far we have 1.5 cups of cornmeal, 1.5 cups of rye. You may choose dark, light, or pumpernickel meal, your choice of types of flour. Incorporate into your wet mixture, and then we will add bread flour after that 20-minute rest. By the way, when you add sugar at this stage, you actually hyperactivate the starter, and you get the natural yeast that's found in the starter. Very happy because they like sweet things. This recipe is very functional. If you don't want to use straight tap water, I've used flattened beer that is warm to lukewarm, or coffee. That's one of the tricks to making a pumpernickel dark. To decide if you want to use yeast or not, this loaf was made with just starter, no yeast, and this loaf was made using the yeast. I find for many modern tastes, adding more wheat flour or bread flour versus traditional recipes makes a higher loaf. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of instant active yeast. Now, if you look at Mrs. Child's recipe, she requires 2 gills of active yeast that you should make fresh, and she gives recommendations in the Frugal Housewife how to make your own yeast. Today I'm using instant active yeast and sourdough starter to try and recreate that flavor palette that would have been from the 19th century. You'll see that we're using a different form of a bowl. It's actually called a dough trough. And this is a item that was found in many a kitchen. There's also such a thing as a bread box where flour would have been put in the bottom, and they use actually what looks like a hoe, and it's called a bread hoe, to stir the flour together, like you're seeing me use today with a wooden bench knife. The purpose of this is you're able to move a large amount of flour and it reduces, and dough, and it reduces the amount that your hands are covered in it. Now don't worry, I am going to get my hands in here shortly, but I'm just trying to work in a fair amount of the flour. What we want to do is bring the dough together. It's going to be a little crumbly, but because of the wetness that you have with the cornmeal, the 2 cups of water, you're going to find that the dough will resemble that of a biscuit more so than a hard kneaded yeast dough. We're not going to be kneading this. We're going to be adding the flour in. So there you go. You can see that the dough is springy, almost like a biscuit or a cake dough. I'm going to place it in a bowl that has been oiled. Flip it, and then the top will be oiled. Cover with a cloth and let raise until double in bulk, or until when you place your 2 fingers in, they spring back. We're about ready to divide our doughs, but I want to talk about the Beehive Oven. It takes about 3.5 hours to prepare it in order for it to bake. To see how that is done, please reference our earlier video on sourdough bread. Let's check our dough. It looks about ready. And what we will do is gently divide the dough, and we're going to place it in oiled pans and allow it to continue to rise. You can see that the tendency of the dough is to be clingy and sticky. You can oil your hands before you start to work with the dough so that you do not have bits, all of the dough clinging to you. Place it in the pan, gently pat. Never strike, never twist, never bend. Be gentle and kind to it. Think of them like children. They're your little babies of bread, soon to be cooked into loaves of bread. Cover it with a little cloth and wait until the pans are full, and you're going to put it in an oven. At home, you'll bake it in your oven at 425 degrees. Before you place your loaves, we recommend spraying water. This creates steam in your oven so that the skin of the bread loaf will be able to expand, allowing your loaf to rise. We've done 2 separate bread videos about sourdough, and we haven't even talked about starter. Starter is very easy to grow. And I use the word grow because it is a process, it's living, and it has active yeast that are in your environment. The first starter I'd like to talk about is my mother. I'm going to refer to her as Eve. She is a wheat flour starter made with bread flour, a little bit of yeast, and a tiny bit of molasses to get it started, including water, about equal ratios, 2 cups of flour, 2 cups of water, tablespoon of molasses, and a teaspoon of yeast. I let that grow, and for the next 4 days, I would take a cup out and add 2 more cups of flour till it finally built up. When it was fully stable, I put it in the refrigerator and let it rest for 7 days. Take it out, feed it, let it get warm at the counter, feed it, and then I can use it whenever I want sourdough bread, sourdough pancakes, or leavening for other flavors. I had a challenge from one of my girlfriends who I shared the rye starter with. And she said, well, what are you naming your starters? And I thought about it and I've decided this is Eve and welcome to Adam. Adam was born through 2 cups of rye flour, 2 cups of lukewarm water, and 1 cup of Eve. So she sort of shared a rib for Adam. Much the same process of taking out and adding new flour and new water. You have to realize with your starters, they constantly need to be fed new flour and new water. This is the sign of an active starter. You can see the bubbles coming to the top. After 12 hours, the top of a rye starter begins to look like a cracked piece of gingerbread. This is the wheat flour starter. You can see the bubbles that come to the top, which indicates it's lively. This was fed approximately 4 hours ago. The consistency of the starter should be that of pancake batter. It has been 45 minutes and the Beehive Oven has dropped in temperature. So let's take our breads out and see if they're done. If you look at the bread, you can see it has already started to pull away from the side. It's a nice light, even consistent brown color, so I think it's done. And if you wrap it lightly, it sounds hollow. Most breads, when they're in a loaf pan, when they come out of the oven, I almost immediately turn them on their side. And what that does is it releases so that the bottom of the crust won't get soggy with the steam that's still in the dough. So normally I would cut this flat, but because I don't have a cutting board with me today, we're being gentle and not hurting anything. That is your reward. Delicious, well-defined grain, and it will cut into beautiful thin slices to either use as a sandwich or as an open-faced sandwich. We can thank our Northern European brethren who brought rye to this country. And we have to thank our Native Americans who taught us all how to use maize. This is the homogeny of everyone coming together to make a perfect loaf of bread. Thank you for joining us today at historic Cold Spring Village. My name is Clare, and it is our pleasure to bake for you.